Godzilla Minus One, 2023, directed by, let's see if I can get these pronunciations right, directed by Takashi Yamazaki, written by Takashi Yamazaki and a couple of other of his friends there. It stars Minami no, I'm going to give up there. Stars some really good Japanese actors. It is a Japanese film. Godzilla is a Japanese concept.
Run! It's Godzilla! It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not.
It came out of Japan all those years ago. In the 50s, I think we had the first Godzilla film. Correct me if I'm wrong. They made scores of them. Obviously, it's been brought back more recently in Hollywood makeup with Godzilla vs. Kong, things like that. There's quite a few monster movies there. But this one is a Japanese film. And it takes place just after the Second World War. Obviously, at the end of the Second World War, Japan had a couple of nuclear bombs dropped on it. And in a way, I think kind of Godzilla is a sort of cultural offshoot from the fact that happened, because the idea that is, an irradiated monster in a way, born from the ashes of some sort of radioactive explosion or whatever. I'm sure that's in the lore there somewhere, but obviously this is a new film. It does kind of look like the monster is very much, akin to the monster we see in some of the Hollywood films in some ways. But this is a completely different film from anything that Hollywood have done recently. In my opinion, it was a hell of a lot better than any of those recent Godzilla movies, especially Godzilla vs. Kong, as I mentioned, etc. We did watch that together a couple of years ago. This was miles and miles better, I thought, in terms of its writing. It really got you into the film. The special effects, I believe they won an Oscar for it. That's how good that was. Dave, what did you think?
Yeah, well, as you say, kaiju film, monster film, Godzilla. Obviously, I think it's the franchise with the most entries in, I believe, as a film franchise.
Wow.
And as you say, it's Japanese film. I think when you break it down, the first Godzilla films, the first 13 or so, are the kind of the Japanese ones, and they're considered the best. And then after that, it was all Hollywood, and they basically ruined what the point of these films was about, because, as you alluded to, the film was an allegory for World War II and the nuclear bomb being dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It's all an allegory for America, nuclear bombs, the end of the war, what they're feeling. And so that's what the films were originally pointing at, It's kind of a way to deal with those emotions and realities after the Second World War. But ever since then, Hollywood took over. They didn't want to deal with that kind of thing. So it was just a silly old monster movie that everyone thought was a pile of poo, basically.
That is one big pile of shit.
We've had, obviously in the last year, there's been another Godzilla film, which has been a Hollywood film, which I haven't watched, but it looks dreadful. When we've seen a couple of the recent entries in the King Kong Godzilla monsterverse thing they're creating, and they've been terrible. As you say, this is a very Japanese film, a much more grounded story in reality, and it's kind of very similar in its plot line to the original Godzilla film, but fantastic performances. It won the Oscar for special effects. The special effects here are brilliant, and the cinematography, it does look beautiful, and the set design and stuff, I thought, because away from all you got all the monster and the Godzilla itself and the boats and the sea and all this and destruction, okay, great, and that looks fab. But the set design of the destroyed Japanese towns and cities, the rubble, the characters, the little nuances throughout really sold the film for me. I was sitting there going, I believe this. I believe this is post-war destruction and everyone is depressed. And so there's a really heartwarming, heartfelt story going through it. And really, you only see Godzilla probably for 20 to 30 minutes in the film, I'd say, on screen. The rest of it is all taken up by this beautiful story of people surviving, and what do they, wanting to survive and dealing with the guilt of surviving the people who they've lost, which it's just so much better than what you get from like a Hollywood interpretation of these kind of films. I think you're just like, wow, this is story and not just action, flash in the pan stuff, you know.
Yeah, in the American films, it always seems to be, you know, basically, if you could boil it down, the monster's come into the city and he's going to destroy us all. What are we going to do? But as you've just pointed out, this film is character driven. It's about people. It's about the after effects of the war, how they were affected. How are they going to continue living in this world post-war? And as you say, Godzilla is kind of like an allegory for you know, I don't know, I suppose American imperialism coming into Japan afterwards, and the shame of their loss of honor or perceived loss of honor, losing the war, because they famously, you know, would rather die than lose. So you had a lot of suicides and stuff just in the general population, I think, as things were coming to a crunch. But, you know, straight away, that first scene with the kamikaze pilots and they're on that island, aren't they? And Godzilla comes, and it's all, you don't really see much of him. You know, he's kept in darkness. It happens at night. He's in the shadows, and you know, that was just a thrilling opening to set the scene for the main character's story. He then returns to his home. He is, like you say, ashamed because he's supposed to have been a kamikaze pilot. So it's like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead, you know, you're supposed to have killed yourself in a kamikaze attack. So he's dealing with that and the emotions of that. And then he gets caught up with this young girl who's got a baby. You know, it's about sort of, I say, rebuilding and building a new society on top of the ashes of the old one. And then that's what the film's about. It's not just about a monster that's going to come into Tokyo or whichever city it is and just hammer it, even though that does happen, and it is fantastic when it does.
Yeah.
You know, because all of that other stuff aside, if it was just a spectacle and you wanted to have, you know, you want to see Godzilla wreak chaos all over the city, it's fantastic how they did it in this one because it's all period stuff. So, you know, you haven't got the modern trappings of the city. Like in that one we were talking about, Godzilla versus Kong, there's these big glass skyscrapers and everything, but this is more sort of, you know, old world in a way. And I thought that was, you know, like you said, they did an amazing job, cinematography and production design. It looked fantastic.
It did, and it kind of deals with it more as like modern mythology. And as you say about them, like they're looking after each other, they're kind of like they're all orphaned. And so it's like making their own nuclear family from the ashes of it all, which, you know, it's a great allegories in there, you know, about all these things. I think the only question I had at the end of it, and I don't know how I really feel on this one, but I was getting, you know, they survive at the end kind of thing. Well, it spoiled exactly what goes on.
No.
But I kind of felt like maybe they shouldn't have, and I'm not sure.
You always want everyone to die at the end.
Well, yeah, maybe. But I don't know if it would have hammered home a couple of points a bit more. Maybe possibly.
Yeah, possibly.
But
I
it's
suppose,
a very realistic take.
Like all movie franchises, though, they probably left the door open for sequels, you see. So you can understand why they did it. I agree with you, but at the same time, I wasn't completely dissatisfied with that. But
no,
overall, as a film, it was so engrossing. And that's because of great writing and a great story. And it's nice in a way that Japan kind of takes back their own property in a way, because like you said, it's gone to Hollywood ever since. I mean, I think back to that early 2000s, was it, with the film with Matthew Broderick and stuff, and that's where I think of Hollywood taking over Godzilla and it becoming something else. Before that, the guy in the plastic suit.
Look at that.
Rubbish writing on those films compared to this, which is, as I say, a character-driven story that you can really invest in for a couple of hours.
And I think as well, it's rubbish effects in those kind of Godzilla Kong ones. It's all so CGI. It's like watching, I don't know, Attack of the Clones or something like. It's like, here you go, full-on CGI fest, and it just looks terrible in the way it's all done. And then, you know, there's validly wins the Oscar for best special effects because it's really well done, and it's remarkable because it only cost $12 million to make this.
And didn't they use
budget.
a lot of practical effects as well?
Yeah, they had little dolls and they did a lot of like stuff, and you can see it a little bit if you're really paying attention. But it's remarkable.
And that has its own charm anyway, I think, because if you've got little models, like the older Ray Harryhausen stuff or Jerry Anderson, you can, when light hits those objects, it does what light does rather than, that's where I think CGI falls down. They still haven't quite got, those natural world effects and how light bounces off things. And that's what gives it the uncanny valley kind of sense that you think, well, this isn't real. Whereas with models and stuff, even if you can notice it, sometimes it still looks more real in a way. Yeah.
Exactly. And as I was about to say, on a 12 million budget, and they've returned 115 million at the box office.
Yeah.
It's done critically amazingly well. An international film on a smaller scale, but achieving big things. It's like, this to me is a real success for international cinema and for kind of independent cinema, I think, a bit, because it's done tremendously well.
Well, I watched it in Japanese with subtitles, but there's also a dubbed version out there for anybody who struggles with subtitles. So we would say definitely go and see this film or get hold of it and watch it at home if you haven't already. It is highly recommended by us. Fantastic Godzilla film. You will not be disappointed. Thanks very much for watching this video. We really appreciate it. The best way to support our channel is by giving us a like and subscribing. Other ways to support us include buymeacoffee.com or become a patron over on patreon.com. This video is also sponsored by funkytshirts.co.uk, so check out their website for a whole range of cool and funky t-shirt designs. All the links are in the description.